Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Untreated and Unleashed Conversations with Carroll. And you're in for a valuable treat today. We're here with Mary Elizabeth Hand, the Executive Director of the Nick Finnegan Counselling Centre, often referred to as NFCC, in Houston, Texas. And I'm covered with chills even saying that. The Nick Finnegan Counseling Center, I think Mary Elizabeth and I probably both get emotional every time we say that out loud. Nick Finnegan, this beautiful human being, Mary Elizabeth, like her brother, and many of us, their family, we love them so dearly. And in honor of and in memory of this incredible child, Nick Finnegan, their family, I'm going to let Mary Elizabeth tell you the story, but the Nick Finnegan Counseling Center has come alive and changes people's lives on every level that is good. So welcome here today. Turn everything else off and pay attention to what Mary Elizabeth's going to share. Mary Elizabeth, welcome, you beautiful child and amazing executive director. Welcome today. And please, if you can, some way, let us know when the center turned into Nick Finnegan Counseling Center, how it started at that time, and what you have done with this team to get us where we are today.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, Carol. I'm so happy to be here. Um, so like you said, Nick and I were childhood friends, and in 2004, Nick tragically lost his life in a car accident. It was a few weeks before I was leaving for my freshman year at TCU. So that was a very transformative time for me as an 18-year-old. I had not lost anybody close to me. So that was really my first experience with grief. I remember just profoundly the grief process for myself within my family system and then within our friend group. And so when I heard years later that they were going to start something in honor of Nick, I, at the time, was a child life specialist at Texas Children's. And of course, I wanted to be as involved as my early work schedule would allow me to be. So I served on the advisory board. And then a few years later, I worked on staff. And that's in large part of conversations with you, Carol, and some of our friends that were serving on the advisory board. And so I came on staff in 2013 as the development director. And at that time, NFCC was hosting two fundraisers, our crawfish boil, which was our first ever fundraiser and is still just such a fun event for families, and then our fall Tree of Life Gala. So when I started, one of my big tasks was to create a grants program because NFCC wasn't writing grants at the time. That has since become a huge revenue source for NFCC, and we are incredibly thankful to all the foundations who support NFCC through our grants. But in 2015, I became the executive director. So I have served in this role since fall of 2015. And I think one of the largest reasons that we've been able to grow since then is because at the time when I was the development director, our executive director was also the clinical director because she was seeing clients. So she was really wearing all the hats, which really worked at the time because we were a smaller nonprofit, and she was an incredible counselor. And when she decided to leave and go into private practice, and I became the executive director, it created this wonderful opportunity to hire a clinical director to work alongside me. And so at the time, we promoted one of our counselors, Audrey Omenson, to become the clinical director. And she and I worked in tandem for several years together. And I think that allowed the growth to happen pretty rapidly because I could focus on the fundraising and just the day-to-day operations of NFCC, while she was really able to pour into the counselors and focus on the clinical program and growing that. Since then, we have grown tremendously. We have 22 staff now. 12 of those are counselors, and they work with kiddos as young as 3 years old all the way through elderly adults. We do everything from of course, we do grief, but it is not the only thing that we focus on. We also work with kiddos for ADHD, life, just transitions. We would do couples counseling, individual counseling, family counseling. We really do anything that you would seek a mental health counselor for. And I think because we have such a large clinical team, it allows us to serve full families. So we could have one counselor working with one parent, another counselor working with the other parent, another counselor working with the child. And it's really wonderful for the counselors to have such a large team that they can consult with and look for support in. I think that's a really unique thing about NFCC having such a large clinical team. And so the growth has really just been incredible to be a part of. We have grown our outreach program tremendously in the last few years. I have one full-time outreach counselor and then two outreach counselors that split their time. They see some clients on site and then they are out in the community the other time. And we are in schools now offering what we call school talks. So talks that are on topics that the school is interested in, whether it's screen time, social media, bullying. There's a long list of topics that we present to schools that they can choose from. But then we also are offering professional development on school campuses. We're meeting with parents. We just did a talk at my kiddo's elementary school campus a few weeks ago on screen safety. And that was really, really incredible. I told the counselor afterwards, I said, I work here every day, but I still learn something new every time I get to participate in these outreach opportunities. So it's been a complete just privilege, honestly, to be able to see the growth and to be a small part of this. The team here is incredible. Everybody that works here, including advisory board members, really just wholeheartedly believe in the mission. Everybody that works here wants to give back to the community. They want to, and I think they just deeply believe that people should not have access because it's too expensive. Everybody deserves quality mental healthcare counseling. And so that's why we're here, right? We're here to make this accessible to the community. I love that we're taking it on to school campuses now. We're on a few different Title I school campuses now offering these resources. We have a partnership with communities and schools. So we have counselors going onto campuses that have really, really low resources, and they're offering mental health counseling at no charge 1 day a week. There's just a lot of really neat things that can happen when you partner with other organizations in your community. When you realize we work together, we can have a better and larger impact. So that's kind of what we're all about.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So much is there. It's here with what you and your amazing team does. And these wonderful groups that you're collaborating with at this time. I guess what strikes me as beyond, number one is the Nick Finnegan Counseling Center allows this to be affordable for all.
Yes.
That is not how people think of counseling. I know so often the first thing I hear out of someone's mouth is, well, we can't afford that. And I'm thinking, oh my God, yes, you can.
Right.
But you can contact the counseling center. And at NFCC, if you'll explain, it's sliding scale, correct?
Yes.
And insurance.
Yes, and private pay. So we have 3 payment options for clients. So the private pay rate is $95 an hour, which is well below market value. That is for a fully licensed counselor, and then $75 for an associate. So that means they've graduated from graduate school, they've sat for their licensing exam and passed, but now they have to have these 3,000 plus hours of client care that's under a supervisor. And so we charge $75 for our associates. And then we serve on 5 insurance panels. So all the major insurance panels. And then in addition, we have a sliding scale. So I think the unique thing about our sliding scale is there is a form that they fill out, but then it goes directly to the clinical director. So the Heather, who's our current clinical director, there's a box on there that says extenuating circumstances. So even though if they're going to fall into a certain box based on annual income, number of dependents, so on and so forth, if there's an extenuating circumstances box and they write something in there that is going to make them below maybe where those kind of checkbox questions would put them, we take that into consideration.
Mhm.
We recognize that affordable means something different to every single person, and we really try to meet people where they are. Nobody's ever been turned away at NFCC due to finances, but we do feel it is important for them to have some type of financial investment in their care. So that is a process that Heather, our clinical director, works with clients on, and then it's reevaluated every few months to make sure that that rate, is still working for the client.
Incredible. That is different. Even the $95
Yes.
for those that can afford,
Yes.
even much more than that, that is such a generous offering. So
Yes.
I know the community just, appreciates that so very much. And on a personal note, we had referred someone, of course, many people, but this person said, please share my testimony. And she saw and worked, she was severely depressed and worked with someone there. And she said, the Nick Finnegan Counseling Center saved my life. Counseling matters. And I wonder, Mary Elizabeth, are y'all seeing people come to you all as preventative care sometimes? I think people now that much due to what you all have done, the status has changed. It's more like, when are you going to start your counseling?
Right. Right. Right.
Not, oh, what do you need counseling for?
Right.
We
Right.
all
That's
do.
yeah. That's a great question. I feel like I am a huge proponent in being proactive instead of reactive. So I feel like when I talk about counseling with friends or family, that's always the angle that I'm coming at it from. It's better to get in with a counselor and build that relationship in a proactive way if you can, because then when inevitably something hard happens in your life, you already have that relationship established.
Mhm.
Now, we know that that isn't always how therapy relationships are created. A lot of times people do seek therapy because something really hard has happened in their life, and that's when they seek therapy. But then the next time something hard happens in their life, that relationship has now been created. I think going back just for a second about the insurance and, the generous offering that we are able to keep our private pay rates under $100, that's in large part because of the unbelievably supportive community base that has poured into NFCC since
Yeah.
we existed. And I feel like I try every opportunity I get to thank our donors, thank the community who's continued to support us, because their generosity, their support is why we are able to keep our rates as low as we can. It is, to no surprise to anybody that cost of living has gone up tremendously over the last few years. But even though that has happened, we have not raised our rates. And that is always going to be a goal of NFCC's, is to keep our rates affordable, to be able to offer insurance, because we want to make counseling affordable and accessible. So I do just want to, make sure that if we have people who are watching and they're asking themselves, like, how do they do that? It's the generosity of our supporters that are allowing us to, offer these affordable counseling services.
You do such a great job of always pointing that out and thanking everyone that is so generous to NFCC. And it's, I know that's appreciated. And also, I think it is so important because back to this prevention, if you will, and beginning these relationships. One of the reasons I think that is so important is that, um, another conversation I had with one of your associates, Heather, who's so wonderful.
Mhm.
She did talk about the relationship and how you all at NFCC are so careful if someone comes and it doesn't feel right, not just for the client, also for the counselor. You all have enough counselors now that this is not a personal situation because you want it to become personal and this
Right.
relationship driven. So you all have enough to refer to one another.
Yes.
And if there's somebody for some reason that it's not there, you always make sure they have someplace to go.
Yes. I think that's the biggest link right there. And I tell people all the time, if, people will say, if you could wish one thing for NFCC, what would it be? And my answer typically is, I would love for NFCC to be everybody's first call,
Yeah.
because I know that the dark web, you go to Google and you start looking for a therapist, how intimidating, how confusing that can be. And so just know that NFCC has put in the time to create a really robust referral list. And so if for any other reason you yourself, someone comes to you and expresses, a desire to find a therapist, tell them to call NFCC, and then let us handle that part of like, can we fit them in here? And if we can't, let us offer them referrals that work for what they're looking for. Because again, it's so time consuming and it can be so intimidating. And like you mentioned earlier, sometimes cost is the prohibitive reason of why someone doesn't get therapy. But a lot of times it's also just, they don't know where to go. Like they don't know where to start. And so I always say, let us be that place where they start, and then let us help them get connected to the right person, whether it's here or outside of NFCC.
Yeah. And I think that's huge. That's a huge difference that you all are there, number one, for the client
Yes.
and for them.
Yeah.
And that's where the mission starts. You had pointed out to me, this is pre-show and before, people don't get into this business. You and the counselors and all, y'all aren't in there, to become multimillionaires. You're there for the mission.
Right.
And yes, we can't say it enough, call NFCC first. And I hope that that is what happens.
Right.
Now, I also, and oh goodness, I know we don't have a lot of time, but I want to touch base just a little on your incredible outreach programs.
Yeah.
You have so much collaboration going on in order to help more and more people. It gives me chills once again. Talk a little bit about that if you would.
Yeah. So when we decided to kind of create an outreach counselor position, the whole desire behind this was we know we can have a larger impact if we take our services outside of our walls. So we started small, but that of course has now grown because now the demand for NFCC on school campuses is just growing. We are on several different school campuses, some Title I school campuses, some public school campuses, some private school campuses, offering school talks. Now, school talks can be to student bodies, they can be to parents, or they can be professional development to the staff at the school. We're also running groups on school campuses. Some of those are, if they're on a Title I school campus, then those are free of charge. And then other groups we're running on other campuses, the kiddos participating in that group are paying to participate in that, but we're removing the transportation barrier of parents having to get them here because we're taking the group onto that school campus and pulling kids during like an ancillary hour of their school day. We are still partnering with communities and schools, which is just such an incredible partnership. We've had anywhere from 3 to 5 of our counselors on school campuses 1 day a week for several years now. And those counselors from NFCC are hopefully, when schedules allow, placed on the same campus year after year. So they're really able to establish these incredible relationships with the students at that school. And it's been really neat for counselors to just watch them grow on those school campuses. Outreach is a really incredible way for us to meet people where they are. So it's not always cost that's the barrier. It's a lot of times it's transportation, it's schedules. This is just, people have busy days, in today's day and age. You ask someone how they are and they're like, I'm busy, I'm running around like crazy. It's just, people are busier than I think we were 10 years ago. And so when we are taking services to them and it's removing that scheduling conflict, that transportation, that's helping tremendously. We are really, one of kind of our newer initiatives that we're really passionate about is mom's mental health. And so we just wrapped up our first Mom Talk series. It was a 6-week series. We offered it here at St. Luke's. And that was really wonderful. We're already planning our second one to kind of roll out early next year. But then something else that the outreach counselor and I are really trying to do, this is kind of more of a grassroots thing, but they're called neighborhood talks. And we're offering those free of charge, where the outreach counselor and myself just go into somebody's home and we create a flyer, and the host, so whoever is hosting it in their home, gets to choose the topic. And we're just basically saying, bring your neighbors, bring your friends, bring your family. You will get to hear from an outreach counselor from the Nick Finnegan Counseling Center for 30 minutes, and then 30 minutes for questions and answers. And I think that has also been really incredible, because again, you're taking a topic that that host knows is a topic that is being talked about in their neighborhood, and we're educating people on it. And it's allowing people to learn new skills, ask questions, and then they have a resource, whether it's for themselves and their family, or it's for a friend or a family member or a coworker. And so it's just a different way to kind of spread the word, spread the mission about NFCC. Um,
Brilliant.
we don't do anything the same way unless it works really well, right? Like I have several board members who have always said one of my favorite things about NFCC is that you try new things and you're really willing to try new things. So we love to create new relationships, try new things, because the more people that know about NFCC, I think the better. And we know that if one person is positively impacted by NFCC, that can have a ripple effect on the people that are in their lives. And so we're really passionate about spreading the word, spreading the mission outside of our walls here.
I could almost cry now, because what I'm thinking about are the schools where so many families, counseling isn't even discussed.
Right.
So with NFCC, boots on the ground,
Right.
In these schools, I mean, seriously, for mothers, fathers, families, these kiddos to be introduced to counseling and be introduced in a group setting, so they don't feel like, oh, we need counseling. They
Right.
might not know that everybody needs counseling.
Right.
And, somebody said, well, is your family, what's the word people love to say? Not is it a functional family, but when there's trouble in it. And somebody said, well, if there's more than one person in a situation, there's some dysfunction there that needs to be
Right.
addressed.
Right. Right.
And I just cannot thank you enough. I know that we're coming to a close of this conversation. I'm thrilled to keep the conversation going. Cannot wait to have y'all into the neighborhood and invite everyone over here. And Mary Elizabeth, you're appreciated.
Thank you.
And, you always are so good about sharing your appreciation for everyone else. I hope you know how much you're appreciated and what you do and your leadership and the collaboration, and that you all try new things, like your board points out, in order to impact the most people.
Right.
I thank you for your time. I know how busy you are. Is there anything that you want to close with today to tell the audience, other than be sure and call NFCC first?
Right.
They'll make sure you
Right.
get them to
Right.
the right place.
I think it's just really important to remember that we're all walking through stuff, right? Like every person that, that I know, everyone has baggage, right? They have stuff. And to just remember that you're not alone, and that people at NFCC, or other counseling centers, we're here for a reason, right? We are here to make you feel supported, to walk alongside you. And so we always just try to remind, our staff here, people that we interact with, like, this is why we exist, right? We want people to feel seen. We want them to feel supported. We want them to feel validated. And you're not alone, so if you are feeling like, you need a little bit of support and you don't know if counseling is right for you, I always encourage people to pick up the phone and call. You can always have a session and see if it is a good fit. And if it's not, like I said earlier, we can refer people outside of NFCC, but we are here and the staff is here to support this community. We truly all feel so grateful to work at a place like NFCC that is supporting this incredible community that we all live in, we're raising kids in. And so thank you for inviting me to talk with you today. And I don't know how this will work, but my email, I always answer emails. I'm always up for a coffee or a meeting. So I just, we want to help as many people as we can. And if you don't know if NFCC is right for you, always happy to chat to see if it is.
Thank you, Mary Elizabeth. And yes, everyone will make sure that you're able to follow NFCC. Your website is, you better say it first.
It is FinneganCounseling.org.
FinneganCounseling.org.
Yep.
We'll have that, of course, put up. We'll make sure your email's on there. And again, just thank you. And thank you, audience. Spread the word. You matter. Your
Yes.
story matters. And NFCC is here to help. So thank you again. Thanks, Mary Elizabeth.
Thank you.
I love seeing you.